Yeah, so my name is Kira Nilsson. I am 24 years old and I was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm the oldest of three, and all of us are adopted. It's me. I'm half Nigerian, half white. My sister's white, and my brother is half black, half white. And our parents are white. So, growing up in a predominantly white community was really interesting for our mixed and blended family. There weren't very many other families like us, but I think we did fine. I felt comfortable and I had the love and support of an amazing family, but I think the isolation of just not seeing other people that look like you around you definitely wears on you, and it's kind of exhausting sometimes. That's why I feel like representation is so important, especially in entertainment and film, and even just having people that look like you to look up to. And that was never something that I had, and I always just was looking for and striving for. And I think that's something that is so important for young Black kids to see, especially right now. That's I feel like it's so hard to just pinpoint. I feel like we could be here for 3 hours. But I feel like people in Utah are generally very kind. I think most of the oppression that I faced because of my race had a lot to do with microaggressions. So I wouldn't ever say that people were blatantly racist. It was more side comments, degrading looks, stereotypes. I think a lot of it was based on their ignorance. They'd never met another Black person. They had no idea how to interact with someone who didn't look like them. And it made them so uncomfortable that instead of just addressing that uncomfortability, they just approached it in a really like abrasive and rude way. I feel like I got called a lot of names. A lot of assumptions were made about my athletic ability. My hair has been touched all the time. I think they're just a long list of microaggressions. I think one of the worst experiences I ever had in regards to race was when I was 17. I was pulled over by a police officer for reckless driving. When I was turning right at a yellow light, he accused me of drunk driving and then searched my car without probable cause and accused me of doing drugs and drinking. And I was with my little sister, and it was a 10:30 on a Thursday evening, and I was coming home from a friend's house with my little sister. And I think that was one of the first times that it clicked to me that this would have never happened if I looked a different way, if I was a white blonde girl. He also accused me of stealing my car. And I think that's a really common occurrence for Black people in this country. If we ever have success or nice things, we're accused of it's not ours or we took it from someone else, because it's not fathomable for people that we can actually just be successful and well off. And I think that was something that was just really alarming for me, to have a public servant and someone that was supposed to protect and serve me accuse me of being a criminal when I was so far from that as a 17-year-old girl. And it was extremely traumatizing. And that's something I'll never forget. I have another negative one.
Okay.
Another experience that I'll never forget growing up in Utah, I was at a bonfire in Bountiful, Utah, and we were up in the mountains, and there was a huge group of high school kids, and this group of trucks and Jeeps rolled up, and they had Confederate flags flying all over them, and there was a bunch of guys, and they were all white, and they were screaming and hollering and waving the Confederate flags. And there was probably 50 kids at this bonfire, and all of them are white except me and one other guy. And they didn't know who these kids were, and immediately we were absolutely terrified. So they actually hid us in the back of one of our cars and covered us in blankets because we didn't know what was going to happen. The kids were completely riled up and they were yelling, and I was terrified. I didn't know if I was safe. I feared for my life, quite honestly. And I think that was one of those times where I realized what the Confederate flag actually represents to Black America. It's a terrorism symbol. All we see in that is hatred and fear and intimidation. And anyone who flies that flag, it's an intimidation tool. And I think that was something for me that I'll never forget, is that feeling of not being safe in my own community because of the way that I looked and the color of my skin. And that's something that I don't think a white person will ever fully understand or have to live with. Um, well, I was lucky enough to study the civil rights movement very heavily during my time at BYU. I participated in the Civil Rights Seminar, which is an incredible program that BYU puts on, and they take a group of students to the South and we study the origins of racism, starting from slavery up to Dr. King's death. And I think this was the first time in my life that I really, I'd always connected with the Black community and my ancestors through studying history, and just hearing about the struggles and experiences of Black people in the United States for the last 400 years. And I think actually being able to travel to the places, these sacred spaces where some of these historic events had happened, was just completely life changing. You could almost feel the people in those spaces, and you could feel it was palpable, just the horrible things that had happened to them, but also the incredible change that had taken place in those spots. And we were actually able to stand there with some of the activists that were there. And it was almost like reliving history, and it was like history came alive, and I can't even fully explain what that feels like. But I feel like for the first time, I don't know, I feel like my experience as a Black person came full circle for the first time. And I was able to feel this overwhelming sense of pride and empowerment in being Black and knowing where I came from and all of the incredible people that came before me that sacrificed so much in order for me to get to the place that I am today. And even though we have so much further to go, it was just incredible to look back. And I feel like by studying history, you can kind of connect more to those that came before you, especially since American history is so twisted and nuanced. It's just a really powerful experience to learn more about Black history in this country. I would love to tell people about how they can contribute to racial equity in the United States. I would want them to know that they should feel empowered to get involved and take action. I think at this point in our country, we're at a boiling point, and everyone should feel like they have skin in the game, regardless of your race or background. What's going on right now in this country affects all of us in one way or another. And I think time's up for people to pretend like nothing's wrong. I feel like it's very clear. The line is drawn, and I feel like people should get involved. And I feel like sometimes it's kind of discouraging because you feel like, I don't know where to step in. It's overwhelming. You don't know where to start. But I feel like just by asking questions of how can I be a part of the solution to this problem, race relations in the United States, where can I step in, and realizing what talents you might possess that might be able to help push like our whole country and progress forward. I feel like everyone has a role to play, and it's super important to be able to figure out what that role is in any capabilities that you do have to get involved. And also just as white people, I feel like asking questions and letting your guard down and not getting defensive and actually being able to acknowledge that you might be wrong and you might be benefiting from some systems that you've never acknowledged, and that's okay. But now what are you going to do with that privilege, and what can you do to help moving forward? And that's just what I would say. I feel like I always just go back to the very simple things. Since 1619, when Africans are brought to the United States, we've never fully been equal or recognized as equal, whether that was by the law or just even by societal standards. And I simply would love to see a country where every American feels safe and represented and valued. I would love to live in a country where we all where I don't have to worry about leaving my own door and my own safety or my family's safety because of the way that we look. I would love to live in a country where we can have open discussions and dialogues about race, and just like the simple just like all of the little microaggressions. I would love to see those go away, and for just the majority of mainstream America to become more educated about race and involved and care, because I think that's what it's going to take to actually instigate sustainable change. Yeah, this one's a difficult one. I know the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has had a very interesting involvement when it comes to race relations in the United States. I think for every Black member of the church, their testimony is at a different place. And I think we all are working through a lot of different things. I think one of the things that I've struggled with is when other members of the church are racist or prejudice. It's really hard for me to wrap my mind around that we can believe in the same thing and we're all trying to be Christ-like, but they're acting in such a way that's so opposite of that. And it's just baffling to me most of the time. And I feel like one thing that is so crucial for Black members to remember is that we're not a part of this church for the other people, and any of their comments or stares or judgments have nothing to do with our own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I feel like it's so valuable to actually like form your own personal testimony and your relationship and focus on the basic core doctrines of the church, because people are not perfect. Leaders of the church are far from perfect, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to have their own prejudices and lived experiences that are influencing the way that they think about the world around them and even us as Black people. And so I think it's just crucial that you find your own faith and testimony and hold on to that, because at the end of the day, that's all that's going to matter. And if this is God's church, so finding your actual relationship with God is going to get you through honestly anything. I definitely struggle. I've always struggled with Black culture because, like I mentioned before, I was raised by white people. And so growing up, people would always tell me, you're so white for a Black girl, or you talk so white, or why do you dress so white? And I never understood that, because I was like, I didn't know that white had a sound. I didn't know that me acting a certain way would take away from my actual racial identity. And I feel like it's so important for people to understand that the Black experience is so vast and diverse. We are all our own individuals. And I feel like just blanket statement, like telling us what Black culture is to one person means something so different to another. One thing for me that has really allowed me to connect to Black culture is my hair. I think for Black women, hair is such an integral part of our identity and our self-expression, especially wearing our hair natural. I feel like for so long in this country, we were told to look a certain way and that our natural hair wasn't beautiful. And so we were always trying to adapt to Eurocentric beauty standards. And I feel like part of our protest and our self-expression is by saying, no, we're not doing that anymore. This is how I was born. This is the way that I'm supposed to look, and it's beautiful. Just because I have big, massive curly hair, that's incredible, and that's part of what makes Black people so special. It also, I feel like, is really like reflective of our personalities and just like our really loud, vivacious culture. We're fun loving and bright and exuberant, and I feel like our hair should represent that. And I think it's really cool that a part of me that I can carry around with me all the time is part of my self-expression, and just I can show everyone my personality through that. And I feel like that's something that I've always been able to hold on to and been able to show to other people that, yeah, I'm Black and I'm proud, and Black is beautiful.